Okay, so for our first review of the day, going to be reviewing the classic 1999 film Fight Club. Fight Club here is a movie directed by David Fincher. People know David Fincher. He's directed such classics there, Seven being one of them. He's directed things like Zodiac, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, The Social Network. Definitely one of the greatest directors of our time there, David Fincher. And then he's also doing the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood sequel. He's also doing that. That's going to be coming.
Oh, it really? That's for real?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, he is doing that. That is coming up
okay.
there. So yeah, and this was a movie here that came out in 1999, Fight Club. And people say that 1999 one of the best years of film ever. People say that with like you had movies like Matrix come out there during around this time, which we also did a review for.
Yep.
If you want to check that out. So yeah, people
Office
cite
Space came out that year, which
Office-
was not another one that wasn't a hit at the time, and then like took some. It was a DVD and a VHS rental.
Oh, you had The Sixth Sense, you had Iron Giant, you had Toy Story 2, you had Tarzan, you had South Park, bigger, larger, uncut there. You had Sage's favorite film, Phantom Menace, was out there around that time. I know Sage was Phantom Menace.
Favorite film.
It's
one way to put
it. But yeah, a lot of great movies came out around this time, so a lot of people talk about this year.
There's a lot more that you didn't even mention that I would have personally thrown on there. I mean,
Austin Powers, The Mummy, American Beauty.
It was a good year. It was a good year to be a movie watcher for sure. Yeah, I mean, American Movie, which is a documentary, not a feature film, is amazing. Galaxy Quest came out that year. Being John Malkovich, Eyes Wide Shut, Ghost Dog, Magnolia, the aforementioned Blair Witch Project, Virgin Suicides. Yeah, solid year.
Yeah.
Somebody already see Office Space? Because Office Space was 90.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Which usually, well, my friend KT, who does movie runtime and What If I Don't Like It, is always like, yeah, you either were at the epicenter of where things were happening or nowhere near any of it. And that's one that I came to way later. I got into Office Space like 3 years later. It was like a VHS rental or DVD rental, whatever. I don't remember. But a lot of these movies I saw in the theater.
Yeah. So yeah, you agree. Stuff for everybody. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. That was the beginning of Guy Ritchie.
The beginning and ending of Guy Ritchie. I like Snatch. Snatch is fine.
Yeah, I like Snatch. Yeah, which also had Brad Pitt in Snatch.
Yeah. I think there's way more bad Guy Ritchie than there's good Guy Ritchie personally, but
You say you didn't enjoy his King Arthur movie?
Not for me. Not for me.
But hey, he made an awesome Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
American Beauty. Oh wow. Talk about movies that have been black-sided.
Yeah.
For no specific reason.
But yeah, so yeah, a lot of movies that we mentioned there. A lot of people, like I said, cite this.
Did you say Sixth Sense?
Yes.
Sixth Sense, yeah.
Yeah, Sixth Sense there.
Topsy-turvy, Mike Lee. Yeah.
And
Jinro Wolf Brigade, that was 99 too.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that movie myself. I
was gonna say I'll take your word for it, but
yeah,
it's a very bleak, very very bleak Japanese animated film.
Okay, gotcha.
Cool.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, Michael Mann, The Insider, came out that year. That's a good one.
Oh shit, Wild Wild West. Oh man, who doesn't love Wild Wild West? That came out in 1999. Good old Wild Big Willie style. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So what is Fight Club all about? So you got Fight Club. You have Edward Norton here, who is an insomniac there, office worker. You had like a lot of that kind of going on during that time. A lot of people working in offices, dealing with the bleak nature of working in offices. Speaking about the Matrix, that with the character Neo, he worked in an office. They're a very dull, drab office there, gray. Also in Office Space, that was the topic of that film there. And his life is incredibly boring. He lives a very regimented life. He goes to work, he goes home, he shops there on the home network catalog there, calling. This is back when there was really no online shopping really that much back then. You just kind of called on the phone and then that's how you requested what you wanted.
Or a catalog. The IKEA catalog looms large, and one of the great Fincher shots is that he goes through the entire apartment, and you see like all like the names of the furniture and the and the descriptions and stuff come up, which is just very clever and still works even if you have never shot from a catalog before.
Yeah,
in my
so they
opinion.
still had that. And this was based on a book from Chuck Palahniuk there, who also he did another film. That he did a book that also got adapted into a film, which I didn't really like as much. He did that book Choke there, which got adapted with Sam Rockwell.
I never saw it. I love the book. Choke is great, but I never saw the movie.
Yeah. I didn't read the book of it. I think because if I remember correctly, this has been a long time since I've seen that movie, but I think it was about like a guy who's kind of like a slipping Jimmy, right? He like used to fake choke.
Yeah, he's like a con man. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, it's not like it. I love Sam Rockwell. I thought Sam Rockwell was an amazing actor, and he did really great in things like Matchstick Men and all that things like that. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed in that. Yes, Chuck Palahniuk, who did this, who did the book Fight Club, got adapted into a movie here. And slowly as this movie kind of goes on, of course, we're going to get into spoilers. This movie's 25 years old, and it's an incredibly popular movie. I mean, come on now. I mean, of course, we got to get into that. But his life slowly starts to.
By the way, Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father too.
I almost said the same thing.
It's like, come on, what are we doing here?
So we are going to be getting it. But yeah, so he his life slowly kind of destructs over time there. We see this. He runs into a person by the name of Tyler Durden, who's played by Brad Pitt's character, who opens his worldview, expands it, busts it wide open there. And he starts seeing life way differently. And then that is where he gets into the creation of the Fight Club there. So this movie, much heavily discussed still today. This is the movie that a lot of dudes base their whole personalities around. Got that kind of going on. So I'll go around, get you guys' thoughts on this. Sage, what are your thoughts on Fight Club here?
Well, I do. I think it's one of those, goes on a list with things like Breaking Bad or Attack on Titan, even more recently, of characters that people identify with way too much. Because I feel like really the whole point of this movie is, at least the way I think about it, is it presents like a critique of society, but then the movie's actual point is critiquing the critique and being like, it's not an excuse to just do a lot of the things that the character is kind of suggesting is the solution to these problems in the film.
Yeah, it's a satire. It is not like people that look at it as like, here's something to base your whole identity on, are completely missing the point and are the butt of the joke. And it's really hard to describe culturally, but we have moved past there even being the ability to be anti-corporate and have the anti-corporate bias, which is a through line through all of Palahniuk's work. They're not meant to be emulated. I think that there is the question asking of like, where are these unfulfilled male needs that we've seen in years past? Like, people adopt some of this rhetoric and weaponize it and use it for their own shameless glad handing and lionization of self to basically bilk a lot of lonely and angry young men out of their money and make acolytes of them. That's not what this is doing, though. This is actively making fun of that, making fun of that in the deepest, darkest, blackest way that I think generationally, I think most people don't even see that. And that's unfortunate because when it came out, it was groundbreaking. It was groundbreaking also because this happened before 9/11. And there are literal acts of terrorism that, granted, a lot of them are like prank based, but, it gets pretty real. And the idea of, again, spoiler alert for a movie that's 25 years old, the idea is like to erase everyone's credit card debt. Like that's why they're blowing up the buildings. And that's an insane idea now. Like that would be, you wouldn't even get it funded now. So, I mean, I think that like people that just think like, oh, this is a dude bro movie for dude bros are completely missing the point. But in that way that sometimes absent of context culturally from where we were at the time, maybe harder to understand. Because again, this came out before George W. Bush was president. You know, like the biggest problem we had was I almost said George Clinton, Bill Clinton getting blowjobs in like in the Oval Office, right? Like we hadn't dealt with any of that neocon BS, and we didn't have directed rage at all in any way, shape, or form. What we had was a bunch of just empty, unfulfilled, NAFTA-ized consumer choice, and people were angry about it, and they had a right to be. And people that take that and say, oh, what was there to be angry about? You have a job that you don't like? Oh, at least you have a job. No, F off. You have no idea what it was like. Like, you have no idea what it was like. And you don't have to for it to be considered a good work of art, but you have to realize that it is, in fact, a satire.
Absolutely.
And the book is as well.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. The book is as well, but this is the rare case, I feel like, where the movie's better than the book. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just going to say that it's a very similar sort of situation that American Psycho finds itself in today, where people look at it and they just miss the point, and they think,
finance bros are like, he's just a cool guy doing cool guy stuff. He did nothing wrong.
As soon as the chainsaw comes out, there's no questions asked. But yeah, it's like, it is scary to watch people see Fight Club and identify with it super closely and just completely not see any of these things.
Yeah. And that's been obviously majorly talked about. A lot of people now, if you say you like Fight Club, that's like a big major red flag for some people. Go like, "Ooh, you like Fight Club?" It's maybe on the list of movies there that some people may go like, "I don't know," and immediately identify you with a certain group of people.
Yeah.
And these are kind of some of the group of people there. David Fincher even spoke about it. David Fincher says, "I'm not responsible for Fight Club being a hit with incels and the far right. I don't know how to help them and people who idolize Tyler Durden."
Yeah, and if you're gonna knock things for their fan base, I mean, let's start with Christianity. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, look, I like Radiohead too. They have some of the most insufferable fans I've ever met in my entire life. Tool, same thing. Like, they're fans of the worst. You don't get to choose who your fandom is. Well, exactly. You don't get to choose who your fans are, and I think, again, what's interesting is that people latching on to this movie as their identity and latching on to certain sort of facile parts of it. Well, that's because those needs are still not being met. It's just a different generation of people that are engaging with it, and it is a well-made movie. David Fincher is fantastic. I agree, and coming off of Seven, which was amazing. It was like, oh my God, what's this guy going to do next? And what he did is make something that was groundbreakingly countercultural in the way that Adbusters was. But even explaining what Adbusters is now is like, wait, what? Like, it doesn't make sense to people in our modern culture. And it sounds stupid if you mention it. I'm like, no, it was like revolutionary. But that we're talking about something that, basically sounds adorable until you say that, well, that was the antecedent to Occupy Wall Street. Okay, well, eventually it got something in the monoculture, but it's a very clever story, and it's someone you feel like is familiar, somebody who's at a crisis, an inflection point in their life, meets someone else who changes their life and puts them on a path, and it just so happens that it's his other personality. Whoops. Well, that's quite an epiphany that, again, spoiler alert, up there with another movie around that time, Usual Suspects. We're like, oh, it's that guy. It was the guy you never would suspect was like the big, the big crime boss. And it's narratively, you only get to do it like one or two times before it becomes a cliche and a trick, but it did it very well, and and the reason why is because of the excellent filmmaking and the great performances. Both these guys put in excellent performances. Also, Helena Bonham Carter puts in a great performance before she was basically ruined by Tim Burton. Actually, maybe they ruined each other. I don't know, but there's a whole wide swath of movies that like she's in where I'm like, what happened?
Just like the two of them, cool. Johnny Depp in a room.
Yeah, it's just like, you shouldn't be allowed to be in movies together anymore. But she's great in this. She's really, really good. And that often gets forgotten about because of how great Brad Pitt and Ed Norton both are, as well as like people like Meatloaf. And, you have like the supporting cast in this is fantastic as well. And genuinely off-putting. Like when they get into their like, when they're doing their terrorisms, like, it's like, oh my God, this is terrifying. And like you get like the only thing I can compare it to really is The Game. You guys know The Game?
Yeah.
The other Fincher film.
Another Fincher film, yeah, which was a couple of years earlier, where it turns you on your head for what your expectations are going to be, right? And I think that's so, for me, interesting as a film lover when you can do that. And I think there's tropes that it established that have been emulated poorly for years, but I think it's devastatingly effective here.
Yeah.
I gotta feel bad for David Fincher a bit too, because like he says, I don't know how to help these people that like this for the wrong reason. I feel like making the movie, in a way, was the help, and they just were like, nope, I'm not taking it.
Yeah, they missed the point. Exactly. It's a classic case of, oh, you missed the point entirely. You're so close to getting it, and you missed the point entirely.
Yeah, and obviously we have other creators there. We mentioned The Matrix. You have the Wachowski sisters, who they also feel the same way. You know what I mean about this, obviously with the movie, and it's like this isn't the message.
Sure.
And that
oh yeah,
co-opted there, and I think
John Carpenter. They live right. I mean, and John Carpenter like literally was like, no, it's not that. That's not it. Because you have to, and even when you do that, like, yeah, but it is though, and it's like, no, it really isn't. Yeah, but it is. We all know it is.
I think sometimes with it is like these people don't care, that they're missing the point of it. I think it's just the aesthetic of the thing. It's like saying that with Starship Troopers, it's like, when people bring up the fact that Starship Troopers is making fun of fascists, they go like, no, but we like being fascists, so we don't really care. It's like it's still a cool aesthetic to still look at and embody there.
It's because their personalities are shallow, so their interpretations of the films that they watch
are also going to be shallow. Sure. It's also just notable that this movie is explicitly telling you it isn't about role models and perfect little tableaus to be aspired to. It's like showing that there's an absence of that within culture, and this is almost like a cautionary tale that like lashing out and destroying those systems in ill-conceived, quaint, and dangerous ways isn't a solution. And it's crazy that you couldn't even you like they say, oh, you couldn't make such and such today. Well, you couldn't make Fight Club today because it would not hit the same way. And also the algorithm wouldn't even allow for it now. There's no way. All these corporate walled gardens and stuff, there's no way it would happen. This was like when the last gasp before they passed the Patriot Act and then like moved along those principles towards private corporations buying and selling people's data, and the idea of privacy itself becoming an outmoded concept. This was the last gasps of that even being like something that was possible. And it's crazy to describe because now there's an entire generation that has grown up without that. And like it's even bleaker somehow. It wasn't great. Everyone that thinks the 90s were like sunny, no, like it was bad, especially like when NAFTA first hit. It's like, oh yeah, this is not good. I mean, it's great for India, but not great for the U.S. And that's what led to an entire generation of Trump voters because they all lashed out at an easier target than your corporate paymasters that basically wanted to pay people less. It's a minimum wage. We would like to pay you less, but we're legally not allowed to.
The only thing I've seen that exists that does tackle anything in that sphere is the TV series Mr. Robot. I don't know if you ever watched that.
Sure. I love Mr. Robot. I'm a big Sam Esmail fan. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that kind of comes at a lot of those angles as well. But it's like the only example I can come up with, really.
That's a great example because that's taking sort of that Palahniuk writing and like the Fincher deployment and sort of bringing that into a more modernist concept, like with technology and the way things are, and doing so in a way that makes sense with the context of where it's placed. Whereas, I mean, you literally could not make Fight Club. It wouldn't make sense. It would just be, oh, you're talking about Jordan Peterson. No, I'm really not. I'm really not talking about Jordan Peterson. Like, it's nothing like that. This is like the carbon, like, what do they say? Copy of a copy of a copy when he's describing insomnia. It's that of what this was doing. And it's missing all the important and salient points. And it's something that, there's no way to give that context accurately unless you're going to do like a whole documentary series or something on like what it was like to be in the year 1999.
Which could be
nothing like the Prince song, by the way. Anyway.
And you still, I think, have people who make, this type of media. I think Boots Riley, with Sorry to Bother You.
Sure.
Captures that aspect of kind of Fight Club. And you also have another guy who is an office worker there as well in this. and stuck in this kind of dead end type job with that. And then, watching this movie back, I rewatched it for the review. It's just interesting how many conversations in the movie are the same conversations we're having 25 years later. I'll play a clip from this movie here, and this is a scene where it's basically Edward Norton talking to Edward Norton, but you don't know that yet there. But this scene right here.
Found my dad.
I don't know my dad. I mean, I know him, but he left when I was like 6 years old, married this other woman, had some other kids. He like did this every 6 years. He goes to a new city and starts a new family.
Fucker setting up franchises. My dad never went to college, so it's real important that I go.
That sounds familiar.
So I graduate, I call him up long distance. I said, Dad, now what? He says, get a job.
Same here.
Now I'm 25. Make my yearly call again. I say, Dad, now what? He says, I don't know. Get married.
I mean, you can't get married. I'm a 30-year-old boy.
We're a generation of men raised by women. I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need.
So it's just kind of amazing. It's the same kind of conversation of, it's these kind of people stuck in adolescence there. You're supposed to have this life plan that's all supposed to go like, hey, go to college, graduate college, get a good job, then you're going to find a woman, then you're going to get married, then you're going to live a white picket fence, then you're going to have children, and then the cycle is supposed to repeat itself over and over and over again. And then there you go. And that's supposed to be the key to a happy life. And again, it's just kind of these same conversations, that we're having today. And then obviously
Train Spotting. Why does Train Spotting still work? It's the same principle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still, and it sucks. It sucks that it still is applicable, where people are just left feeling lost because we celebrate the individual without celebrating the needs of the individual and supporting them in the society. And that's what you get. You get a lot of just, ennui, lack of fulfillment, and misdirected rage.
What do you think there, Say?
I agree with everything that both of you just said. I mean, it's like having an expectation of like a cookie cutter carbon copy of everyone's life playing out exactly the same, and then that's not going to happen. And there's the expectation of it, and then the frustration that comes out of it, and then, like you said, misdirected rage about why that's happening, or whether it's even really what you actually needed or wanted to begin with. That's a whole other kind of conversation too. But like, yeah, I 100% in agreement with all of that.
There was yeah, absolutely, 100% agreed and understood. Yeah, I get it. But I think it was sort of, I was at the tail end of it. My generation was the first one to sort of just reject that and reject those ideas wholesale. Like, not to say that there wasn't rejections of it in popular media before that. Of course there was, like an Easy Rider or something, right? But just taking like, this is the overarching, morning in America 1980s ideal that everybody is be happy, and to be like, no, like, so that's not a one size fits all paradigm, and that also we're not even equipped to do that even if we wanted to. And then you see that a lot in late 90s media, and there's a pretty good reason for it, because even when we got quote unquote one of our guys into office, they still passed welfare reform. They still like to pass NAFTA. They still made things, material conditions for working people got intrinsically worse, even with a Democrat in office. And that's what we were dealing with it. Even like your quote unquote saviors won't bother saving you. So is it any wonder that you end up with media like this that trends towards nihilism? Of course it does. That's all we had. The boomers have been pulling the same freaking script on every generation, but they started with us. The slacker generation is what they decided that we were. And so then, like, Linklater, makes Slacker, makes the movie Slacker. And that led to like a specific kind of disengagement that, I'm the tail end of Gen X, but we're very good at disassociating from like whatever's happening and protecting our heart because we had to the entire time. And they did the same stuff to millennials that they did to Gen X, and they do the same thing to the Zoomers. They just will continue to do that because they just apparently will forever dominate culture When they're going to be like Futurama, like heads in jars on robots, and they're still going to be dominating culture somehow, and Congress and elected office, and so on and so on. And it's just bizarre and jarring, but it's horrible that 25, 26 years later, that almost everything about this is just you get lift and shifted over. Oh, but there's cell phones now and apps. That's the only real difference, right? And the fact that, like, it's harder to like set up a terrorist operation in a paper mill outside of town. But
And then that leads, obviously, this dissatisfaction that Edward Norton has with life leads to the creation there of seeking out other men who also feel, the same way. And that what we have here of Fight Club.
You do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
Violating both those rules right now.
Fight Club. Someone yells stop, goes limp, taps out. The fight is over. Fourth rule, only 2 guys to a fight. Fifth rule, 1 fight at a time, fellas. Sixth rule, no shirts, no shoes. Seventh rule, fights will go on as long as they have to. And the 8th and final rule, if this is your first night at Fight Club, you have to fight.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's the one thing we haven't talked about is the actual fighting in Fight Club, right? Yeah. We talked about like everything else, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, they're fighting each other.
Yeah, and these are some brutal. I mean, they weren't wearing any gloves, no helmet.
Dude, it is like some bare knuckle craziness. Yes,
brutal.
100%.
And then you had, a movie, like I said, the legacy of that kind of lives on, because that's what I thought about when I saw that movie Bottoms there, with that movie of like you had these women who create their own fight club there.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of that same kind
You're right. It's totally influenced by Fight Club. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that kind of legacy. So, hey, women can beat the shit out of each other too. You know what I mean? It's nice.
And just the jocks as abstractions, right? Like, like the clear, like, I don't even, like the filmmakers, we don't care about how football works. We don't want to care about how that works. They're just abstraction and ideas, in that same way that we have like middle management reduced to like abstractions and TPS reports pre-Office Space.
Yeah. So this kind of deals a lot with that in here. But yeah, you have, this figure, and we are going to talk about it. And you saw this movie, Conan, in theaters there.
I did.
Was it you were kind of in on the game a little bit watching the movie that, this is like,
yeah. I mean, like but look, dude, you got to understand, like one of my favorite movies at the time was Brazil, right? Okay. Like I started early, and I started like pretty getting deep into like to the fact that like the black comedy, the satire, not like, Martin Lawrence. I'm talking about like, like dark comedy. It was my favorite genre.
Darker than him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like just that like that genre of like, wow, this is comedy, but like this is also like incredibly tragic at the same time, was my very favorite. Hence why I like gravitate towards that Terry Gilliam stuff. I love and still love movies like Network, things along those lines. And it was so clear to me that it was satire, that like when like Roger Ebert famously did not like this movie, and like sort of like did not see it as a satire. A bunch of other reviewers at the time didn't as well. And I was like, you guys are idiots. Like, what? Do we watch the same movie? Like, it's obvious that these are not people that are meant to be like emulated. Like who would emulate this? And of course, me and my naivete, like, plenty of people, because people are morons. I think when I was younger, I definitely thought people were smarter than they were in general. It's like, most people.
As I've gotten older, I found that to be very true.
Yeah, I mean,
I had that exact same thought.
What about you?
I'm sorry. What's up?
Oh, I was going to say, what about you? So, did you already know the twist coming into Fight Club before you saw it, or?
I should say, when I first watched it, I hadn't read the book yet. I didn't know anything. I didn't know about the twist. So that was kind of cool. Much in the same way, Sixth Sense, I didn't have spoiled for me either. So.
Okay.
When I first watched this, I want to say 6 or 7, which probably is too young for it. But I remember even then thinking like, this guy sucks. Like, I hope I'm never like him. I remember having that thought. And so even as a kid, like a young kid that shouldn't have even been watching the movie, I felt like it was pretty clear. At least I might not have understood every facet of it at the time, but I feel like the broad idea still came through very clearly to me.
It's like, it's like the meme. Men will literally start a fight club instead of going to therapy.
And then looking at, you have the scene where Edward Norton, who's known as the narrator in the movie, who narrates a lot of things.
Yeah, they never actually name his character. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have that. Hey, good narration. We talked about that during Goodfellas. There are movies with good narration. This movie has great narration there. And you see kind of his life. It's describing his life of what he does on a day-to-day basis. He's a projectionist, and then he is a waiter, and then he pisses in people's soup there as a waiter.
First red flag,
Yeah, first red flag there. And it's like when you're really looking at his life, like this dude kind of just lives like a degenerate. Like there's nothing really.
He's a total degen. Yeah, you're right.
It's like it's not really cool, really. I guess this would be again. It's this aesthetic of, like a 15-year-old would find cool. It's like when somebody thinks Andrew Tate is cool. It's like it's kind of what a 16-year-old thinks.
But dudes like Andrew Tate did not exist at the time, and that's another thing you got to realize is there was this like brattiness is the only way that I would describe it. That like pranking was big. Like in a way that's like that's stupid now, but it's like no, it was like this is a way you could rebel without putting yourself in danger necessarily, and so like the pissing in the soup obviously would be the one step beyond. But like things like one of those hilarious scenes is when like the talking about like the whole you got to bring someone in, right? And you get the guy like at the mechanic shop with the hose, and he's like he sprays the priest, and the priest's like hey, and then he like sprays him again. I mean, by the way, I'm still laughing at that. Like, I laughed at that last night when I rewatched. I was like, that's amazing. That's a great bit. But like so first of all, the efficacy of social media and what people think of as outreach, which is actually empty catharsis without results. And everybody's like penned away and all of their personal data is being mined and sold and resold, and dissent itself being commodified completely beyond anybody's possible imagination. But none of that existed in the 90s. There was not like, hey, let me go react to this celebrity. No, there was no ability to do that. I mean, when 9/11 happened, they literally would not let anyone on the television to even express doubts about why you could do it. Janine Garofalo was the first person. Janine Garofalo, a comedian, was the first person that was allowed to have a dissenting opinion. And she basically lost her career because of it for a good portion of time anyway. It is a different world. And people act as if these mediums that allow everyone to, react and do activism. And okay, I'll give you the former, but I think the latter is, largely safely ensconced away in places that can do no harm whatsoever. Didn't exist. You didn't have the freedom of expression. You didn't have catharsis. So what happens when you don't give people catharsis? Well, you end up with dudes like this who end up getting rooked by someone like Tyler Durden, who looks like he's got all the answers. And, it's a situation. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Tyler Durden is like a humanistic, critical thinking individual compared to some of these shameless manipulators that have taken up the mantle in real life.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's funny because you have in some ways the same sort of kind of presence in the world being fulfilled by that character, and then some of these people you're talking about today, but because the fictional character was written by someone that was afraid of that happening,
right?
They're actually intelligent and thoughtful. And another thing about it too is just you're talking about some of the humor before too. Sometimes I feel like it's very lost on people to be able to say this was funny and it's wrong, and they think,
oh yeah, absolutely,
I found it
right,
funny, so it must be right. That's another thing I think it's really tripped up with a lot of people. They can't separate the two things. Like, oh, this I gotta laugh. This was funny, and it's funny because it's so fucked up, right?
Can I laugh at this? Do I agree with the ideals behind what's happening? No, that's not important. But like culturally, that's become something that's important, especially to younger folks. And I understand it, but there requires a disconnect when you're engaging with media that isn't from the last 15 years to be able to turn that off, or at least put it aside for a second and be like, yes, it is. Airplane is funny. I think the Fairley Brothers as people are dicks. They suck. I wouldn't want to hang out with them, but it is funny,
Yeah. And it's the two ends too, because the other end is also people that find it funny and then go like, oh yeah, no, I agree with that because I laughed at it. And then they do take
Well,
it to that simple direction, and then they're just so there's like two sides of different misunderstandings or different
right.
misinterpretations at the same time going on there, which is frustrating. I think for again, probably David Fincher, who who made the thing and sees these reactions to it and is just like, this
I think
isn't
you're
really
onto something because if you think about it, for the source text, like it's a salient media critique of where things were in the 90s, like, and
yeah.
done so in a way that like actively is lampooning things that were happening in real time. And we're talking about things like, consumer culture, a home shopping club, like whatever we want to call it, the dawn of the IKEA era, like all of these things that were they, again, it did seem like our biggest problem. And I'm not saying that it's not a problem. I'm saying that people gave up. People gave
Yeah.
up on even fighting it.
Yeah. And
And
then
I think people need to really think about it when I say that, because that's exactly what happened.
and obviously purposely having a guy that looks like Brad Pitt, at this time he was one of the sexiest men in Hollywood at the time, all-star, and he was on a great run there in the 90s. Also the look of him, I mean, the outfits he's wearing, very flamboyant. He looks
Yeah.
like kind of a JoJo Bizarre Adventure character or a One Piece type character there that you got.
And this is a few years after he does 12 Monkeys, which basically is amazing, but it proved to people that he could do character actor work. That like, oh, this guy isn't just a pretty face. Like this guy can act. And then he like really leaned into it, like with Seven, and like he's just became like, oh, he's one of the great. He actually is one of the people that started the leading man and character actor being the same person vibe, which is now like all there is. Like you should let ugly people act,
Well, and it's also like ironically proving its own point by, if someone's charismatic and good looking and they say the worst thing, how easy it is to buy into it just based on the look of that.
Because they got
personality.
charisma, because they got panache. Yeah, absolutely. They got a cool
It
jacket.
goes
They got
back
cool
for
looking. You know what I was thinking about last night? I was like, God, those sunglasses are pretty cool. And I was like, how many years old is this movie? Those sunglasses are pretty goddamn cool, man.
Yeah.
And that's something you can say about cult leaders going back hundreds of years too.
Sure, man. Yeah.
I mean, people love people who can talk a good game, and he absolutely does that here as Tyler Durden's character. And then also something this movie does as well, that it kind of touches on, which I haven't heard many people talk about before. It's kind of also he has this also psychosexual attraction to Tyler Durden in a way, and
which makes it all more interesting when you know that Chuck Palahniuk is gay.
Okay, I did not know that. So
yeah,
and
he came out finally like a couple years ago. It's like, dude, we know. We all know. I've read your books. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. And it comes out because another person in this movie, Jared Leto, who's in this film, very young Jared Leto is in this. And then Edward Norton sees the way that Tyler Durden is looking at him in this way. And then so when they get into the ring and when they fight Edward Norton and Jared Leto's character, he beats him to a bloody pulp there, almost kills him at that point.
Yeah.
And it's just, is he in a way jealous of this attraction? Is he attracted to Tyler Durden in a way? Is he just jealous of this type of close friend that's now looking at somebody else who's building this relationship with? What did you all think
I've
about
always read it as attraction.
Okay.
Yeah, I think all those things can be true at the same time, and I think that the confusion between that is intentional, and I think it makes sense for what they're doing, which is this incredibly intimate, shirtless, I might add, act of flesh to flesh contact, whether it be in violence or not. I do think people kind of find homoeroticism in things that it isn't there because they're just trying to like wishboard it, sometimes. But I think in this case, it's perfectly valid. Sure, I mean, it's of course it's homoerotic. It's just sweaty dudes in a basement together. I mean, take of that what you will, right?
Freaks were homoerotic.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I think that's notable, and I think it's it's an intricate ritual where you get to touch the skin of another man, right?
Yeah,
and I think that's there's a theme, there's a through line through a lot of Chuck Palahniuk's work about stuff like that. And again, he was very careful about not like he tried very much to live a private life, but of course with these insane fans, right? How can you do that? But eventually, he came out and I was like, yeah, who doesn't? But of course, people are like, what? I didn't know. I'm like, all right. Did you actually read these books and like watch these movies or not?
Books are kind of
Some
long.
people were surprised when George Michael came out, so I feel like you can never totally put it past everybody.
Yeah, dude, come on. Yeah, this is surprising. Oh, really?
So yeah,
and good for him. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean that like gay dudes can't be like toxically masculine. Because again, this is an excoriation of toxic masculinity. It isn't a celebration of it. And I think maybe people's enjoyment of this movie might be predicated on whether or not they know that or feel that. Because I know people that do not feel that way. There's been some very substantive critiques on it that I'm like, we apparently watched a different movie because you watch a movie where this is like just a celebration of, like, again, people that like think Starship Troopers is just like a jingoistic nightmare. It's like, yes, it is a jingoistic nightmare. You're so close to getting it. Keep going.
And this is the reveal scene here. So towards the end of the movie here, the reveal comes out. Then I already knew about the twist before I saw the movie, so it wasn't really anything to me. So yeah. Because of course it being a popular movie and that kind of coming, so I already knew about that kind of going into
it. Does do a thing that, like when you know that reveal in real time, you're like, wait, hold on, but there's so many scenes of them interacting, and then it shows you those scenes, but like shows it with just Edward Norton's character. I'm like, that's so good that they do that. 'Cause otherwise, you'd be like not paying attention to the ending and being like, well, wait a second, how were they fighting? And then you see him just like hitting himself in the parking lot, which is astounding and hilarious. And like, oh my God,
Some of
like
like
so
the
dark.
funniest moments.
It's the best. It's some of the best physical comedy. But anyway, yeah, go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
Yeah. So this is the scene there where the reveal is made.
What did you just say?
What's wrong with you?
What did you just call me? Say my name.
Tyler Durden, you fucking freak. What's going on? I'm coming over.
No, wait, Marla, I'm not there. You broke your promise. Jesus, Tyler. You fucking talked to her about me. Tyler, what the fuck?
Was those the sunglasses you were talking about? Or you talking about?
I was talking about the other ones that sort of like
Okay.
shooter sunglasses. Those are those are more like Bono-esque.
Yeah. Chronicles of Riddick sunglasses right here.
Totally. Yeah.
For one thing. One simple thing.
Why do people think that I'm you? Answer me!
Sit.
Answer me, why do people think that I'm you?
I think you know.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. Why would anyone possibly confuse you with me?
I don't know.
You got it.
No.
Do not fuck with us. Say it.
Because
Say it.
we're the same person.
That's right.
We are the all singing, all dancing crap. I don't understand this.
You were looking for a way to change your life. You could not do this on your own. All the ways you wish you could be, that's me. I look like you want to look. I fuck like you want to fuck. I am smart, capable, and most importantly, I'm free in all the ways that you are not.
And that's very
Tyler's
important.
not here.
I'm not there.
He had to create
Coming
this
over.
kind of other persona to kind of come out and be the guy that he always kind of wanted to be. And it kind of emphasizes, maybe that, you see the popularity, a lot of these figures kind of come up there within the far right, within the manosphere that people are calling it, of these people are the idealized versions of who these people want to be or want to become one day. And if they listen to them, then they can one day become these people.
If they buy the correct supplements and yeah.
If I eat enough horse testicles and what was the thing people were taking for COVID? With horses,
ivermectin.
Ivermectin. If you take enough of that, hey, maybe you'll become a horse too. Like in Sorry to Bother You, maybe you'll become a horse.
I forgot about that somehow. Somehow I forgot about that. Yeah.
Can I also just say, I don't think there's a more homoerotic word that I've ever heard than manosphere, and I feel like that tells you something.
It's
so
God, it sucks so bad. Like I hate it. I hate it so much. And I try to like limit my exposure to things that like, set me off like that. But every time I hear that word, I'm just like, I wish I never had heard that. I wish it didn't exist. But anyway, can't wish it away.
Do you think kind of one of these things is the movie's also saying is that with a lot of men that you're kind of your own worst enemy and you need to kind of break free there? And because a lot of these dudes, they think what's holding them back is their looks or is those certain things, but is it mainly just their outlook on life there?
So it's a self-actualization thing, right? And you got to understand this is before therapy was more normalized. Like when it was around, when this source material and when this movie came out, obviously there were people that were more erudite and more metropolitan, whatever, and they would accept it. But it was still considered somehow taboo. Oh, there must be something wrong with you if you're going to a therapist. Going to a head shrinker. There was a stigma attached to it, and it wasn't. And again, I hate to use the word normalized. It wasn't normalized in the way that it is now, where it's like, well, yeah, of course, we live in this world. Why wouldn't you go to therapy? Like, Jesus Christ. And
I feel like that's only in the last decade, even.
Exactly. No, I agree with you. And I think that, along with, you have to think about the rise of the Tony Robbins style, like self-actualization, like, what is it? The Tom Cruise's character in Magnolia, those types of guys that were just, the earlier iteration of this manosphere style people that were just weaponizing that. And there's a sucker, P.T. Barnum, there's a sucker born every minute, right? It's 100% true, but it's because they were taking advantage of a collective psychological trauma that, again, had different sources but amounted to the same result as what we have right now.
What about you say?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's all extremely accurate. I mean, it is taking this kind of like toxic daydream, like expectation of like, well, this is what I should be. So I'm going to look at anyone that's inhabiting this, again, very cookie cutter kind of idea of success, and just being like, well, I'll just follow whatever that looks like without really thinking about it.
And it's stacked too, right? Because like within the text of the movie and with the text of the book, and it's saying, you're not going to be a rock star. You're not going to be like, a famous actor. You're not unique and special. Like, again, this is where they got snowflake from, right? Mm-hmm. Which is crazy to think about, because talking about like taking something and twisting it around to be like something that it isn't. It's like, no, this is because this was meant to be like, no, because there is no opportunity for you is like why this is the case. And you have to like be okay with your own self-actualization and things that are intrinsic of material value, rather than these lofty ideas and notions of fame and fortune. And again, cannot overstate how incendiary that was at the time. Now it seems quaint, right? Of course, we all know that. Yeah, like the best you're gonna be able to do is get some clout on one of these fakakta streaming platforms. Okay, we got 600 subscribers now. Awesome.
Yeah, trying to make it to 2,000. Trying to do that.
Yeah, right.
Hey, subscribe
whatever. I'm not trying to subscriber shame. I'm just saying that like that's what we've now settled for, is that these like safely ensonce subsections of a substrata of a culture where everything is so like balkanized, like it's atomized practically. And then you have everybody separated out apart. Everybody has their own lived reality, which is really something that almost nobody predicted. Probably the closest thing would have been like Soma for in Brave New World. But
yeah. And then you also have this, and then with a guy like Tyler Durden, I mean, you said this, him being this person is still kind of keeping his same politics, even within this Tyler Durden figure there of anti-corporation, anti-capitalist there, of them bombing. They want to, bomb these credit card buildings there.
To wipe out people's debt, right?
Wipe out people's debt there. Instead, you have these figures now that are saying like, no, consume, buy cars, buy,
right.
Rack up debt.
You know what I mean? Get all that stuff. You have that. So it's just very anti-capitalist type of thing here that you have.
Which that's another misunderstanding of Palahniuk. And that's a very continued line of narrative function throughout a lot of his work, is he's very anti-corporatist. He's like anti-authoritarian, to the point that like some of it comes off a little more like it's that weird libertarian thing where it kind of goes back over to being progressive for certain things, but in a way that doesn't make sense anymore because like that's just gone. That's just
It's like
absolutely
there
gone.
used to be a left-wing libertarianism.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
hard to you describe that now and be like, what? How would that even be possible? And it's like, well, yeah, because they're all just along for this like horrific agenda. You know, they don't actually believe in like government leaving you alone. They are explicitly anti-trans because they don't want trans people to exist or have a good time. You know, like and that didn't used to be the case. It used to be like, no, there was like they really are like live and let live, but they want their guns and their weed, you know. Okay, you know. But and then they love corporations. They love it. They love it. Everybody loves corporations now. Again, talk about in terms of music. There used to be the sellout argument. If you took a commercial, you were a sellout. You were creatively invalid. Anything you say is compromise. There's a great Bill Hicks bit about this, right? Everything you say from there forward means nothing because you have sold out your art. Your art is now meaningless. Now it's like, oh, we're on an Apple commercial or whatever. Oh, you made it. This is your big break. That idea itself is lost to culture. Like it does not even exist. It is a Godzilla versus Bambi level battle. We lost.
And Integrity was Bambi's mom.
Exactly. Integrity. What's that? Never heard of her.
And then you see as this organization, you see him building it, growing, and then it becomes all across the United States. These different factions of the Fight Club start popping up. He's grown this whole movement there, and they commit these domestic terrorism acts, as Conan said throughout the movie. There, at first it starts off small, like, hey, we're just gonna blow up this little, statue here, a little something there.
We're gonna erase the videos and like, the popular movies section of Blockbuster, which explain that to a kid now, but what does that mean? What's Blockbuster?
Like, just little things like that. And these men, they feel a part of something, which is what you see a lot of the populars of men trying to be a part of something and a bigger purpose there as a collective.
Belonging. It's a sense of belonging, a sense of accomplishing something. Right? Even what you're accomplishing is tearing down things in the most nihilistic way possible.
Yeah. You have that, and then when you see the Meatloaf, who's in this movie, rest in peace to Meatloaf there. Bitch Tip Bob in this, as he's called there by Edward Norton's character, who he first meets at a support group because at first he starts going to all these support groups for people with various illnesses, and that helps him actually able to go to sleep again. That sense of belonging and place, and people who will listen to your complaints there, and that's where you also meet Helen Bottom Carter's character there, and the big thing they bond over is like there's people here that will listen to you, that will actually listen to you and not just wait for their turn to talk, which is very important for these people and very important for their lives. Which leads them, as first as the domestic terrorism kind of goes on with this group, leads them to Project Mayhem, which is the ultimate thing, which at the end of the movie, you see that Edward Norton's character is trying to chase Tyler Durden and figure out what the hell is going to go on with Project Mayhem. And this has gone too far and I want out of it. There. And one thing about this movie, 25 years later, do you think that some things now with this movie, even though it is very relevant, is at all cringe at all now, or some of it is a little like?
No, I just think they would be objectively painted as villains. Tyler Durden would literally be the villain, like the cackling, like one note but charismatic villain, where like the heroic government agents are trying to stop Project Mayhem, which to be clear is the collapse of what they consider civilized society. Like that's the end goal of Project Mayhem. But like that's how revolutionary this was. Is like, no, like think about how many movies have like had environmental terrorism as these terrorists want to do that. I'm like, well, hold on, maybe these terrorists have a point. Where it's like that's where the world that we live in now, that we don't like where examples are few and far between, but like what is it, how to blow up a pipeline, right? That's an like a pretty good example like recently of something that's not doing that. But like, how often do you like see stuff like that? And if you do, it's like art house stuff, and it's not cringe at all to me. It's just it would be painted differently. Tyler Durden would have to be a villain that like again, there's no ambiguity, right? There would have to be something where like, well, he's not doing good because he's doing, like, a character would have to have like some pontificating speech that would basically ruin the entire thing for me, for my personal sensibilities. Looks good on you though, you know.
And then they do make a point to try to say, well, like, I've already thought about this. There's no security guards. There's no janitors in the building, so nobody's going to get killed. They do.
Which is the Death Star argument, right? Like, you know, where it's like, oh, well, like, what about all the people's families that like worked on the Death Star, right? And it's like, oh, well, which to be fair, I did get that from Clerks, another 90s movie. But yeah, like, it's like, no, this is indeed the perfect crime, right? Because the only person who really gets hurt are these corporate entities.
Yeah. Well, that argument got brought up with Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, I mean, he said, how many civilians did on the Death Star?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
yeah. Good old Ted, friend of the show, Ted Cruz.
What about you, Sage? What do you think about kind of that and Project Mayhem?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only way I would see it as cringe is if I didn't see the movie as a satire. If I didn't look at it as a critique of a critique. Because I think as it is it's a movie that presents like there's a genuine problem and then this extreme solution, and it's like criticizes parts of the solution, right? But if it was made now, I do think that'd be cringy because it would just say, here's the critique, but we're not gonna kind of talk about the part of it that's like the actual problem either. It would either be one or the other, and it would just lose all the nuance.
Well, and yeah, and again, lose all the nuance, which is we live in nuanceless times. And unfortunately, Fight Club is a multi-layered story that relies on nuance and the ability for the viewer to be able to distinguish through critical thinking what is and is not objectionable behavior. And again, looking at the causation versus the result is something that people should do more often. But we also live in the dumbest timeline, right? Like if you were to say to me, hey, we're going to have an armed insurrection in your lifetime, like, oh my God, that's crazy. And like, yeah, but it's going to suck. And it's going to be just annoying. And then nobody's really going to like facing repercussions from it. Because the first thing I would say would be like, wow, people are getting shot and killed on American soil. That's crazy. Nope, nothing. None of that happened.
Yeah. Well, one person did get shot.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And by the way, there's like some guy that's going to be dressed up like he's like a cult leader in the woods. Okay, great, awesome, sounds awesome.
Well, that's your future president for 2044.
I thought you were talking about Jared Leto for a second.
but that's probably what all this media got wrong. Is that everything we live in? Like, it's the mundane apocalypse. Everything's very mediocre. Like it's nothing as exciting as like everybody thought it was gonna be. Like, you know, even if you could have predicted, and again, can't overstate this point, the idea of privacy being an outmoded concept or something people would even think about or consider, nobody, like, that's too horrifying to think about in the 90s. Like it would be something like, no, people would fight back. Actually, they didn't. Just give it to me convenience. Give me convenience or give me death. That's all it takes.
And with
thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyway,
and at the very end, I think also this is something maybe you wouldn't see there. Is they actually do kind of accomplish Project Mayhem.
They totally do it. They blow them up.
Yeah.
To the Pixies, no less. Which, is there anything more Gen X than having a cool soundtrack to doing your crimes? You know?
Yeah. And this will be the song that'll be played in so many trailers and so many movies for the next 25 years. Where's My Mind by the Pixies there?
But I cannot overstate how revolutionary it was. There's a Pixies song in this Fincher movie? What? It was crazy. It was insane. It was like, no way. There's no way that anyone would allow that to happen.
One of the benefits of watching it at too young an age is that it was still the first time I heard that song in a movie.
Oh, really?
It blew your mind there a little bit. It was like, whoa, this is the best song ever.
And you're like, where is my mind? It already got blown. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, my first exposure to the Pixies was Pump Up the Volume. So,
okay. Is that an album? Is that a movie?
Oh no, it's a movie with starring Christian Slater. I actually did it for the Unkind Rewind. I went back and revisit.
Okay,
mostly holds up. Salient critique of a number of things, not the least of which is like the proto podcasting world. But yeah, I was expecting to be like, this is not going to age well. No, it actually aged pretty well. I mean, Christian Slater still was, doing a young Jack Nicholson as he always does. But yeah, that's something that I feel like that movie's lost the time too. But they had an amazing soundtrack. It had that great Leonard Cohen song on it as well. Beastie Boys, all kinds of there's lots of banging soundtracks going on.
Connection, right?
But nothing for a movie this big that was just and again, did not really pop in the movie theater. I mean, when you see it, it did. But as far as being successful at the box office, no, this was a VHS and DVD hit because people would be like, "Oh, I heard about this movie. I got to check this out."
This box
Another
office
thing we're losing a bit too, because with the lack of physical media, that second chance at life and success, that some of these things that maybe take a little longer to process.
Yeah,
we're going
because streaming services, they're there and then they're not. Then they're just gone. You can't find them anymore. They're gone. Yeah, Zaslav wrote it off. What?
Well,
where'd it go?
Goddamn Zaslav.
Yeah, so this box office was 101 million on a budget of 63 to 65 million budget here.
Yeah. So not a flop, but not a hit. Either.
Not crazy hit wise there. Some of the movie there that you had the cast and crew compared to the movie The Rebel Without a Cause and The Graduate. Rebel Without a Cause was a James Dean film, and then The Graduate was a movie with Dustin Hoffman there.
Yeah.
You had that there. And then also this movie, much talked about in the 90s. Obviously, this movie when it came out there, very much talked about, still much talked about today. Their cult classic. This movie is there. Also,
got to be one of the most referenced things of all time.
Oh yeah,
maybe one of the most referenced things of all time. There you have one of the defining movies, maybe of our time. I don't think this movie is it in the National Film Registry. I'm trying to think. I don't believe. I wonder if it is in the National Film Registry.
I mean, it's this. Think about. Let's see. I'm looking it up now. Why? First result. Why is Spy Kids on the National Film Registry? It's apparently only eligible now because it's been 25 years.
Okay, so it'll probably get in now.
Yeah. It's been there. But just think about you mentioned the quotes, right? I want you to hit me as hard as you can. That's something that everyone's like Fight Club. I know what that is. That's Fight Club. People know what that is. Even if they don't like the movie, they understand that that's a quote from that movie. It's
like a lexicon sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why did I say when I said that a woman at the club, she called the cops on me? What happened?
There's no fun, man. No fun.
Just tell the cops she didn't appreciate the movie enough, and maybe that'll help.
Yeah, maybe the cops are in Fight Club. Maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe it'll be like the movie.
That, by the way, that is a crazy scene, in the back quarter of the movie where Ed Norton is trying to stop the Project Mayhem stuff, and then the one cop leaves, and then all the rest of the cops are in on it. That's insane. It's so insane that it works so well because you're like, oh, whoa, crazy. That's insane. And again, there's some of that in the game too. Fincher obviously likes that kind of stuff, but there are things the things you own end up owning you. It's almost like a Buddhist construct, right? I mean, that's I think about that to this day. That's a quote from this movie.
And this is we mentioned David Fincher. This was also written by Jim Ewells, who has the weirdest resume. So he did Fight Club in 1999, but then in 2008 he did Jumper. That's his other credit.
Jumper.
That was a movie with Hayden Christensen and Samuel L. Jackson, and people.
That was one of the hardest movies to sit through I think I've ever been in the theater for.
Huh. I have not seen Jumper. Oh man, I just looked at that guy's what that guy looks like. He looks like he could be in a Fight Club.
I'll give you guys final thoughts and rating. Sage, what are your final thoughts and rating for Fight Club here?
Yeah, well, that's at the risk of being repetitive sounding. I think this is one of those really misunderstood movies by a lot of people. But if you're willing to sit down and take the time to think about it and process the structure of it, I think it's got just so much to say, and there's so much to get out of it from a comedic lens, from a dark, really thoughtful, tragic lens. I give this a cinema. I think it's an incredible film. It sucks that it is kind of taken and used for these weird purposes that it was so not intended to be. But I don't think you can hold that against the art itself.
Mm. Is it one of? Do you think it's the best movie of 1999?
Oh, it's hard because there's just so much good stuff. I I don't think it's my absolute favorite. That might be The Matrix.
Okay, The Matrix. Okay. What about you, there, Conan?
I mean, yeah, I said a lot of it already, but this movie isn't about role models, isn't about perfect little tableaus to be aspired to. It's about lost men finding each other and finding meaning in a cause, later lashing out and destroying systems in ill-conceived, quaint, and dangerous ways. It centers domestic terrorism as the culmination of the plot. This is not meant to be something to be emulated. And the fact that we have people that have built careers of emulating 1/10 of what is interesting and cool about this, and basically taking it for the most mundane and nuanceless application of that, it's depressing. And it just shows how horrific our culture is and how we have trained ourselves to not care about multifaceted media that's meant to challenge. This is a challenging movie. When people say that, like, I don't know how to feel about that, it's like, good. You shouldn't know how to feel about that. I personally like that kind of thing. I don't want to be served up pablum. I don't want to be served up like, easy to process baby food. I'm not looking for that. That's not interesting to me. And this is a movie that was at the vanguard of lampooning something that barely existed at that point and doing so devastatingly effectively. And as a great movie, this is just a fun time. It's a fun time to watch. It's deeply entertaining and well made. And the problem is that you can't evangelize for this movie unless people think you're one of the people that missed the point entirely. So you have to be real careful and measured in your critiques and your raves. Otherwise, people think you're one of the worst people in the world. Which, again, to be clear, are the people being lampooned in here. But that's the problem with a lot of satire, right? Is that as we live in more and more times that are just obnoxiously like straightforward and on the nose, where you have to spell out, I am against this. I do not like fascism. I do not like this. That some of this stuff gets lost in the sauce. And I think that's too bad, because I think people that engage with this movie without understanding the context of where it came from and why it's important and why it was actually groundbreaking at the time, it's not for the reasons you maybe think. They're missing out and they're cheating themselves. I mean, it's 5 out of 5 stars.
So 5 out of 5. So this is cinema.
This is 100%.
So you think it is the best movie? Do you think it's the best movie in 1999?
In 1999, I'd probably have to re-rank things, and I haven't seen Office Space or Being John Malkovich in a while. I like those movies both quite a lot, but it's for sure top 3, and I might reappraise it as the best movie in 1999 after this most recent watch.
What else would it be in your top 3 there?
Like I said, Office Space, Being John Malkovich.
Oh, Being John. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I love Being John Malkovich. I'm a big that was groundbreaking in a different way. that Spike Jonze thing that, again, is hard to describe to people unless Eternal Sunshine is going to be something that I think everybody 1,000 years from now people will understand that movie and appreciate it. But
yeah. This movie,
great year though. I mean, stunning year for movies. I mean, man.
Yeah, we talked about 1999. You had Toy Story 2. You had Iron Giant there. You had Being John Malkovich. You had Three Kings, which is David O. Russell.
Three Kings. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah,
David O. Russell, piece of shit, but it's a solid movie there.
Not great as a dude. Magnolia, Paul Thomas Anderson's Shortcuts.
Yeah. Election. You had that movie, the Reese Witherspoon.
Election's
Yeah,
great.
that was
Eyes Wide Shut, the last Kubrick movie.
Eyes Wide Shut. There, that was a great one. So yeah, you had a lot of these great
Ghost
movies.
Dog.
Ghost Dog, with Forrest Whitaker there. Sixth Sense, which was a
Underrated Jim
classic.
Jarmusch movie.
What do you think is more quoted, Sixth Sense, I See Dead People, or Fight Club, Hit Me as Hard as You Can? Probably Sixth Sense, right?
Depends on your company. Both are like top tier. Like, identify this quote with one sentence, or identify this movie with one quote. Yeah, for sure. I'm curious what the most popular movie of 1990 was. Probably The Matrix, right?
Yeah, The Matrix. I think The Matrix wins out. Yeah, The Matrix is gonna win out. Everybody was trying. Yeah, the black leather, the sunglasses, the freezing in the air, and all. Everybody.
Oh my god! It was every action movie ever. Like, it was emulating The Matrix for at least 10 years, right?
Yeah.
But that was also Phantom Menace here, as you mentioned earlier, which, woof.
Yeah. Yeah. Phantom Menace.
Less said the better. We're gonna do a month of Star Wars movies. I think in August, but we are being selective about what we choose to cover.
We did a Phantom Menace not that long ago.
I'm so sorry.
So we did that one. But I mean, hey, Fight Club, amazing movie there. One of the best movies, not only of 1999 or the 90s, just one of the best movies ever.
Wow. So worldwide gross, 1999. The Matrix number 4 behind Toy Story 2, Sixth Sense, and Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
By the way, you know what the 5th one is? Tarzan.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
And then The Mummy, Notting Hill. Wow, really? And then World's Not Enough, which is the James Bond movie that year. American Beauty, again, redacted to a black site. And Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. Wow.
Yeah. So so you had that. So I would give Fight Club, This Is Cinema. I think it is amazing. I think one of the best movies, not only of the 90s, but all time there, for all the things that we said about the movie, for its messaging, for the performances, for the direction of this movie. Soundtrack of this movie is also really great there. Just all the topics that's easy to delve into, as we talked about with Fight Club. We spent a long time talking about this movie, just all the different various aspects of it, just from a political level there. Is such a very interesting movie just to dissect and talk about. So yeah, absolutely. Fight Club, amazing film.
I think it deserves to be talked about too, and instead of dismissed.
Oh yeah, absolutely there. I know that you do have people out there, like Downton Abbey said, that people who like to talk about a little too much there.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You do have that, but
it's completely valid.
Yeah.
You do have normal people out there that do love this movie and do appreciate for all the things that it's doing. So, this is cinemas all around for Fight Club. Did you said you already have it on Blu-ray there, or DVD that you had it?
I guess it's a DVD. I thought it was a Blu-ray, and it was a false memory implanted by my enemies, apparently, because it's a DVD. But it's fine. My player still played it. But I actually looked through all the extra features, and I kind of forgot how many like cool extra features they had, like a walkthrough of the production design of the paper house and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this is real interesting.
That's cool.
That's what you love about DVDs, Blu-rays, the behind the scenes features,
the extra stuff. Yeah,
the commentary.
Look what they took from us.
Yeah, you wouldn't have that great quote from Ben Affleck about Armageddon without DVD commentary there. About that. Yeah. So, Sage, you watched it on DVD, Blu-ray?
I've got a Blu-ray on my shelf.
Okay, got the Blu-ray on your shelf.
I'm an essential.
I watched it on streaming. Shame on me. I watched it on.
How dare you?
Max.
Retire.
You're the problem. Yeah.
But yeah, that was Fight Club.